Do you believe in UFOs? And are we being visited by extraterrestrial beings from outer space? Those are very loaded questions to ask, aren't they? What if I told you that in 1961, among this rugged mountain range in north-central New Hampshire, an incredible UFO encounter took place, and it would unleash a phenomenon of UFO encounters, abductions, and alien medical experiments on humans. Scary stuff. It's a story of how a middle-aged couple, driving along a remote stretch of narrow and dark country mountain roads in the middle of the night, was pursued and stopped by a large UFO, and how the couple was abducted and brought aboard the alien craft, and then they were medically examined by the scary extraterrestrial beings. Would you believe the story? Welcome to History on a Hog. I'm your host, Cap'n Boz. I really wanted to do something different in this episode, something really out there. I wanted to take a look at this phenomenon of UFOs. I know it's a very controversial subject, but it's a subject that has always fascinated me. And you might assume that because I spent most of my career as an anal retentive military pilot and a research test pilot who believed in hard scientific data and analysis, that I would be someone who did not believe in UFOs. But you'd be wrong. In fact, I'm a firm believer of UFOs, or more specifically, UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. In all the years that I flew, including hundreds of hours inside the so-called Bermuda Triangle, I did personally experience 2 separate UAP encounters. However, in my case, my belief in these objects does not necessarily translate into believing that they're being operated or piloted by extraterrestrials or little green men. There's absolutely no hard factual evidence to support this theory. Not yet, anyways. So given my intense interest in UAPs, it was no surprise that when I came across this historic road sign while I was riding through Franconia Notch in the White Mountains of northern New Hampshire, I was compelled to stop and check it out. And what I read only further piqued my curiosity into the Betty and Barney Hill UFO case. Their fantastic story was the first sensationalized alien abduction case, and it opened up the whole alien abduction craze that has followed. In the UFO investigative community, only the Roswell UFO crash incident gets more attention. The Hills abduction case comes in at a very close second in popularity and notoriety. The Hills ordeal was highly publicized in the media, and their incredible story has even been made into a popular TV movie, and has been the subject of many investigative documentaries. It really is a fascinating case. So, the Hill UFO encounter story should be taken with an open mind, that it did take place. But, and it's a big but, up to this point in 1961, no one had ever reported being abducted by aliens and brought aboard a UFO to be medically examined by the extraterrestrials. The couple claimed that they saw bipedal humanoid creatures in the windows of the large spacecraft that landed in a field at the end of a dirt road, after which they had no recollection of the next 2 hours. When they returned home to Portsmouth, they were unable to explain the 2 missing hours. And here's the location where the supposed initial UFO encounter took place, here along US Route 3, just north of Lincoln, New Hampshire. As you can see, the state of New Hampshire has erected an historical marker to commemorate this event. Today, Route 3 is a very busy road with thousands of tourists transiting through the area to visit the White Mountain National Park. But this was not the case in 1961. This entire stretch of Route 3 was very rural and isolated. It was the perfect place for an encounter with a UFO. Even after 2 years after the incident, the couple were still very bothered. They needed to talk to somebody. And finally, they admitted to what had happened to them, to a fellow church parishioner who just happened to be an Air Force captain stationed at the nearby Peace Air Force Base in Portsmouth. After hearing their disturbing story, he recommended that they visit a well-known Boston psychiatrist who specialized in hypnosis therapy. His name was Benjamin Simon. The Hills agreed to see him, and the Air Force captain set up their initial meeting with Dr. Simon. After several months of weekly hypnosis sessions with Dr. Simon, the bizarre events of that night in 1961 were revealed. Under hypnosis, Betty recounted the events in vivid detail. Unlike Betty, Barney's narrative of the incident was much less detailed. He vaguely described the incident, and fairly similar as to how Betty had described it. Too similar, really. He added little to no additional details to Betty's vivid description, and Barney was given to hysterical outbursts during these sessions, increasing the drama of the story. Today, I think, some people would question his overall mental stability. Dr. Simon concluded that the Hills were not fabricating the story, and the most likely explanation to their incredible experience seemed to be, first, the experience actually happened, or second, some delusional misinterpretation occurred in connection to some traumatic real event that they both experienced. And adding to the credibility of their experience, the military was now involved. The incident was reported to the U.S. Air Force at Pease Air Force Base in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it was quickly passed on to the headquarters of the U.S. Air Force, to Project Blue Book, and its chief scientist, Dr. J. Allen Hynek. A meeting would soon be set up with Dr. Hynek. He discussed their incident at length, and he would also question them under hypnosis. Ultimately, he would concur with Dr. Simon's belief that there seemed to be no evidence of outright fabrication or lying, but some things in their story just didn't add up. And soon after, the credibility of the Hills would come under serious scrutiny. A short time later, a UFO group leaks a distorted version of the story to the press, and the whole thing blows up. The Hills reluctantly disclose the entire story, and they become famous, particularly to UFO and alien believers. However, their story was quickly debunked and ridiculed as a wild tale by a strange and unorthodox couple. Both were highly educated people, a biracial couple far ahead of their time. Many UFO debunkers point to the psychological stress of being an interracial couple living in a predominantly white state during the turbulent era of the 1960s as a cause for their wild story. They wanted attention for their civil rights cause. Of course, another explanation is always possible. The abduction actually occurred. The Hills stuck by their story, despite years of skeptics and detractors. Like many abductees, the couple never felt that these were false memories or symptoms of sleep paralysis to explain what they had experienced. The owners of the Route 3 Notch Express convenience store that sits across the street from the field where the UFO first appeared to the hills take it quite seriously. They promote the supposed alien abduction case, hoping to draw in customers. They have created a shrine to the events of that early fall evening in 1961. All I can say is something interesting happened here. What better explanation can you come up with? Let me know in the comments. Could these vehicles be the initial steps by an advanced alien race looking to establish first contact with us? Or are their intentions more sinister? I don't know. That's why we must collect all the data on them as we possibly can and analyze that data methodically and scientifically, and not go off half-baked on wild theories. I hope you enjoyed the episode. UFOs have always fascinated me, and this may not be the only UFO story I cover. I may look into several more cases in the future. In the meantime, keep looking up and report anything strange that you may see. You never know. They may want to talk to you. Thanks for watching. See you next time on History on a Hawk.